One three-digit number decides where you live, what you drive, and how much extra you pay. A landlord checks it before you get the keys. A bank checks it before you get the car. It can change what you pay for insurance. It can quietly cost you a job you earned. You never signed up for it. You can't really see how it's figured, and you cannot opt out. 3 companies you never hired have kept a file on you since you first borrowed a dime. We just call it your credit score. 3 little digits, and nobody knows where it came from. The answer goes back 180 years, to gossip, spies, and one fateful number. Start with what this number does, because most folks don't realize how much it touches. Want to rent an apartment? The landlord pulls your score before he'll think about handing you keys. Want a car? The dealer pulls it too, and your score sets the interest, sometimes thousands extra. A mortgage on a house? Your score is the difference between owning a home and getting refused. In most states, your car insurance company checks it and charges more if they dislike it. Apply for a job, and an employer might pull a version of it before they ever call. Even your phone, your power, your internet. Sometimes they want a deposit, and the score decides how much. One number, quietly standing in the doorway of almost every important thing you will ever try to do. Now here's the strange part. You never asked for this number. You never filled out a form. It was just assigned to you. The first time you borrowed, a file opened. It never closed. You can't see the real formula. It's a trade secret. You can't delete yourself. No off switch. 3 private companies hold the file. A 4th sells the formula. None of them work for you. You are not their customer. You never were. The banks are. And you're being sold. Yet we just accept it. We treat that number like the weather, like it's simply nature. But it isn't nature. Somebody built it. Somebody decided your whole financial life should hang on 3 digits. And to understand why you have a score, why any of us do, go way back. Back before computers, before credit cards. Back to a time when credit didn't mean a number at all. It meant something older and a whole lot more personal. It meant your character, who you were. And the story of how your character became a number starts with a man, a panic, and spies. For most of American history, credit was simple. To borrow, you went to someone who knew you. The local merchant, the banker on Main Street, a man who'd watched you for years and judged. He didn't run a number. He ran his memory. Were you honest, hardworking, church-going? Did you drink? They called it the 3 C's: character, capacity, capital. And the first one mattered most. Your credit was your reputation. The way folks talked about you in town, that was your score. It worked fine, long as everybody stayed put. The man lending knew the man borrowing. Small risk. But America didn't stay small. It exploded westward. Strangers started doing business with strangers, hundreds of miles apart. And how do you trust a man you've never met in a town you've never seen? That's it. Then in 1837, the country had a financial panic. Banks failed. Debts went bad. Trust collapsed overnight. Out of that wreckage, a New York merchant named Lewis Tappan had an idea that would change everything. Tappan was an abolitionist, a man who fought slavery, but his most lasting invention was something else entirely. What if, he thought, you could collect everyone's reputation in one place, bottle the gossip, and sell it? In 1841, he founded the Mercantile Agency, the world's first company built to report on credit. His method was simple and a little chilling. He recruited a secret army of informants nationwide. Local lawyers, ministers, sheriffs, postmasters, quiet men in every town, paid to watch their neighbors and report back. Twice a year they mailed their verdicts. Who was honest? Who was slipping? Who drank? Who failed? It grew fast. A few hundred informants at first, then thousands. By the 1870s, more than 10,000. And one of those early informants, filing reports from a little office in Illinois, was young Abraham Lincoln. The reports landed in big leather ledgers in New York. Subscribers came and had secrets read aloud. And what was written in those books was brutal, honest, personal. They judged the man, not his money. One real entry called a fellow honest and likely, but warned he was a singer, wasting his time. Another said a shopkeeper was steady and honest, but rather of an unhappy disposition and wouldn't succeed, unpopular. They even sold codes, a number that summed up a stranger. Code 18. Not very good private character. Think about that. Before there was ever a credit score, there was already a number for goodness. The agency was proud of it. It bragged it made men take their real character everywhere they went. You couldn't be a scoundrel at home and a saint on the road. The file followed. It remembered. Tappan's company became R.G. Dunn after the man who took over. Its ledgers fill 2,500 volumes today. And there's a dark irony. Tappan fought slavery, but the man who inherited it, Robert Dunn, was racist. Dunn merged with a rival named Bradstreet in 1933. You know it today, Dunn and Bradstreet. First giant. But Dunn and Bradstreet watched businesses. The truly invasive idea was turning those spies on people, on you. And the company that did it best was born in Atlanta in 1899. The Wolford brothers, Cater, Guy. They called it the Retail Credit Company. And their product was the secret life of the average American. It started small, door to door, asking shopkeepers about customers. Did they pay? Were they prompt or slow? They wrote it in a little book and sold it to merchants. Their first guide cost $25, but it didn't stay about money. Retail credit found companies would pay for everything about a person. So their investigators started writing down everything. Not just your bills, your life, your habits, your secrets. Did you drink? Go to church? Was your marriage happy? What's your race? Who did you sleep with? They'd interview your neighbors, your coworkers. They'd clip the newspaper, your arrests, your divorces, and paste it in. This wasn't a credit report anymore. It was a moral report, a permanent record of whether you belonged. And it didn't just decide loans. Retail credit's files decided who got insurance, who got hired, who succeeded. By the end of the 1960s, the scale was staggering. They held 45 million secret files on Americans, 35 million reports a year, 8,500 investigators out in the field. And remember, no computers yet. Just an army of men with notebooks, writing down your sins and selling them to anyone who'd pay. One writer later called it exactly what it was, a free market Stasi, a private secret police for profit. And like any secret police, it had targets. The files flagged people for being gay, for mixing races. In the 1960s, 2 women, Edith Weatherby and Mary Dunnigan, were denied life insurance. The reason? A neighbor reported them as lesbians, as masculine. That whisper written down cost them, and they never knew. That's the part that should chill you. You couldn't see the file, couldn't correct it, often didn't know. A stranger knocked on your neighbor's door, wrote a rumor, and it followed you the rest of life. There was no law against it, no right to see your file, no way to fix a lie. The company's boss defended every bit. In a business built on information, he said this spying was necessary. But there was one thing that hadn't happened yet, one thing that would blow this secret world open. The computer. As long as those files sat in cabinets, in 1,000 separate towns, they were scattered. The moment all of it got plugged into a machine, searchable, shareable, instant, the danger became undeniable. And when Americans finally found out what hid in those files, they got angry. Angry enough, Washington acted. By the late 1960s, the bureaus were computerizing. Suddenly, all those scattered secret files could travel instantly. That terrified people. A reporter went digging and found the security a joke. He posed as a company and got handed 10 of 20 random credit files. No real check. Your whole life just for asking. Then the workers talked. Investigators admitted they ran on quotas. They had to find dirt, true or not. And when the bad news didn't exist, some of them just made it up, fabricated it, hit quotas. A law professor named Alan Weston described what these files really held. His account ran in the Times. They held, he said, facts, statistics, inaccuracies, and rumors about virtually every phase of a person's life. Your marital troubles, jobs, school history, childhood, sex life, and political activities. All of it, written down, sold. The country was horrified, and in 1970, Congress finally acted. They passed the Fair Credit Reporting Act. For the first time, you had rights. The right to see your file, to dispute what was wrong. And ancient dirt finally had to expire. It couldn't haunt you forever. A genuine victory for regular people. But here's the twist almost nobody noticed. The law didn't kill the bureaus. It made them official. By writing the rules, Congress blessed it. The secret files became legal files. The spies got a license. The bureaus weren't shut down. They were legitimized, handed a permanent place with the government's stamp. Then came a second law in 1974, and it changed everything nobody saw, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. For the first time, it was illegal to deny someone credit for their sex or whether they married. There's a great story here. Congresswoman Lindy Boggs saw the bill left women out. so she added it by hand, then told the all-male committee sweetly she was sure it was just an oversight. It passed. Now lenders had a new problem. Turn someone down, you might get sued. How do you prove fairness? And that's when a quiet little idea, sitting on a shelf for years, suddenly looked very attractive. A cold, statistical number. If a formula said no, not a biased officer, how was that discrimination? The score wasn't just going to be efficient now, it was a legal shield. Proof of clean hands. And the company trying to sell that number for almost 20 years was finally getting its turn. Let's back up to 1956. Two men in California, an engineer and mathematician, Bill Fair and Earl Isaac. They'd met doing research, and they had a radical idea. One most bankers thought was frankly insulting. Their idea, a human being is a bad judge of risk. Too emotional, too biased, too foolable. A formula, they said, would be better. Feed in the facts, run the math, let a number decide. They started the company on almost nothing. By most accounts, around $800. Fair and Isaac, FICO. In 1958, they built their first scoring system and took it on the road. They pitched 50 lenders. 50. And you know how many said yes? One. Just one. Everybody else trusted a banker's gut instead. And honestly, they had reason to wait, because the idea had a problem. No machines could run it. Computers barely existed in business yet. A formula's no good if it takes a week by hand. For years, decades nearly, Fair and Isaac scraped by on odd jobs, even billing for a charge card. Two things were finally changing. Computers were getting cheap and fast, and the laws needed an objective number. The pieces clicked into place. And in 1989, Fair and Isaac released the thing that would rule everything. A single universal score. One number any lender could use for any loan through the big bureaus. They put it on a scale. 300 at bottom, 850 at top. FICO born. And almost overnight, the messy human question, is this a good person, became a clean machine answer. What goes into it? FICO actually tells you the recipe. 5 ingredients, each one a slice of pie. The biggest slice, 35%, is your payment history. Do you pay on time? That matters most. Next, 30%, how much you owe. Max out your cards, and the number reads you as desperate. 15% is how long you've borrowed. 10% is new credit you chase. 10%, your mix. That's it. That's the thing in your doorway. A weighted average, dressed up as a verdict on worth. And notice what it did. It took the old judgment, good, bad, and hid it inside math. The banker who disliked your face used to just say no. Now a number says no, explaining nothing. It felt fairer, cleaner, modern, and in some ways it was. It ignored your church and your bedroom, but it never once asked you. It was built from the same files those spies kept. New disguise. The gossip didn't disappear in 1989. It just got a makeover, a lab coat, and the name Science. For the score to truly rule your life, 2 more things had to happen. First, the spies merged. Remember those thousands of little local bureaus? In the 1960s, there were more than 2,000 of them. But computers were expensive. The little guys couldn't afford the machines. One by one, the big fish swallowed. Thousands of bureaus collapsed into just 3. The same 3 that still hold your file today. You know, Equifax, the old retail credit company, the Atlanta spies, quietly renamed in the mid-70s to bury it. Experian, which grew out of an aerospace company's data arm, and TransUnion, and this last one's almost funny. TransUnion didn't start in credit at all. It started in 1968 as a company that leased railroad cars. Then it bought a credit bureau in Chicago. 3.5 million files, joining the big 3. So 3 private companies now held a file on nearly every adult in America. Strike 1. Strike 2. A score is only powerful if everybody's forced to use it. And in 1995, somebody forced the country. That somebody was the mortgage market, specifically 2 giants you've half heard of, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're government-backed companies that stand behind most home loans in America, roughly 70% of the market. And in 1995, they told lenders plainly, if you want us buying your mortgages, pull a FICO score. When the folks who control 70% of the mortgage market say, use the number, every lender obeys. Within 5 years, 3 of 4 mortgages in America ran on a FICO score. Nobody voted, it happened. And once the score controlled the biggest purchase of your life, your home, it had a foothold everywhere. Think about it. If the number decides whether you buy a house, of course the landlord wants it. The score had become infrastructure, invisible plumbing, running underneath the whole economy and underneath your life. A private number, sold by a private company, built from files kept by 3 more private companies. Everyone. No election, no vote, no agency to write. Just a quiet handshake in 1995 that wired it in. And from there, the number didn't stay in its lane. It spread into corners never meant for it. Once the score was everywhere, businesses found new uses for it. Uses with nothing to do with loans. Take car insurance. In most states, your insurer pulls a version of your credit to set your rate. Not your driving, your credit. 2 people, same spotless record, and the lower score pays more. A few states got angry enough to ban it. California, Massachusetts, Hawaii, Michigan. But most places, it's legal. Then there's the job. In a lot of states, an employer can pull your credit before deciding. Think about the trap. You lose your job, miss some bills, your score drops, so nobody hires you. It's so unfair that about 11 states have banned it. But elsewhere, your credit can cost you work. But here's the cruelest part. For tens of millions of Americans, the problem isn't a bad score. None. To have a score, you need a borrowing history. And if you've never borrowed a dime, you're invisible. The government has a name for these people. Credit invisible. And there are about 26 million of them. Add the folks with files too thin to score, and it's around 45 million Americans with no number. And they are not random. They're disproportionately Black, Hispanic, poor. The people already shut out again. No score means no apartment, no car loan, sometimes no job. Not because you failed, you never played. And the rest of us, who do have a score, we're trusting the file behind it is correct. It often isn't. The government studied it. 1 in 5 Americans had an error on a report. 1 in 20 had a mistake big enough to make them pay more. On a loan, on insurance. And whose job is it to catch that error and fix it? Not theirs, yours, always yours. So picture the whole machine now. A number you didn't ask for, from a file you can't see. That might be wrong, that you must police yourself, that can lock you out of home or job. And you might be tempted to think, well, at least these companies are careful with that data, right? Here's the thing about the 3 credit bureaus. You are not their customer. You never agreed to this. They gather your financial life from your lenders, without ever asking, bundle it up, and sell it back. And not just to lenders, they sell lists. Marketers buy people sorted by their secrets. The names, grim. Lists titled Card Declines, Paycheck to Paycheck. Suffering seniors. Real people packaged up, sold by the pound. You are not the customer here. You are the inventory, the product on the shelf. Never once asked. And then, in 2017, the whole arrangement showed its face. One of the 3 giants, Equifax, was hacked. Not a small breach. The names, birthdays, and social security numbers of 147 million Americans. Stop and feel the full irony. You never chose Equifax. You never handed them your social security number. They took it, without permission, to build a file you couldn't see. Then they let it get stolen. 147 million people put at risk by a company they never agreed to deal with. There was a settlement. Equifax paid somewhere between $575 and $700 million. A record. And then, nothing really changed. You still can't opt out. They still hold your file. The number rules. Because the deal underneath never changed. 3 companies watch you. A 4th scores you. None work for you. It's the same deal Lewis Tappan struck in 1841. Watch the strangers. Write their character. Sell it. We just traded the leather ledger for a database. The neighbors whisper for a data feed. A number. The technology got better. The spying got faster. But the basic bargain, your life, watched and sold, remained. So next time you check that 3-digit number and feel that jolt of hope or worry, remember this. It is not a measure of your worth. Not nature, not science. It's the great-grandchild of gossip. A number born from a system that once wrote your race, your drinking, who you loved, then judged. The number was meant to clean that up, to make it fair, and in some ways, it did. But it never set you free from watching. It just made the watching quiet, constant, easy to ignore. You never signed up for a score. Nobody did. We were all just entered, born onto the ledger. Now you know where it came from. Not nature, a choice. Old American. See you next time.